and get the spot changed to different locations, which was, I mean, just being poked over and over again. Not fun, but...
No.
And then towards the end of that, I was given what's called a Zofran pump. So it's very similar to an insulin pump. Same thing with like where you have to change the sites every 3 days and carry around they have like a bigger pump.
Wow.
And it has a Zofran bag that does a continuous dose of Zofran throughout the day. I was on that with my 3rd pregnancy.
Okay.
And I was staying with my mother and father-in-law, and she's just such a wonderful human being. She's a shirt off her back type of person, and she really knows how to serve people well, and she of course loves our kids, and so she was taking care of them. But she had just finished a rough year with breast cancer, and so another situation where somebody who has every excuse to say no and not to help, and yet she did. She's also taking care of her mother full time who has Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And
That's a lot.
it was to just like, to feel a little bit like a burden on some people and not be able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And learning how to just go through that. And learning that there's no excuse to help others. And then also, I struggle with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety with my first child. And then just the depression and mental health that comes with being bedridden for months. Like I was telling you in the message, it just feels like you're being thrown into a hole again, and you have to climb your way back out again.
Yeah.
And so I've climbed my way out of that hole multiple times and have learned that journey well.
Yeah.
And so now I'm very vigilant with my friends who have had children, to really want to be there for them, and to also just look out for the signs of that, because it's not something that a lot of people want to talk about. It's not something that they reach out about.
Yeah.
And you do feel very ashamed that you feel that way. What postpartum depression it's different. It's scary, and a lot of women feel ashamed that they feel that way. They feel like they should be able to bounce back better, and that they shouldn't need as much help as they do.
Yeah.
So they keep a lot of that hidden, but knowing kind of how to crack that. And
No, I always try to ask my friends, and you can tell me if this is good advice or not, but I at least try to ask them. I'm like, after having a baby, I'm like, how are you doing with all the postpartum stuff? And then if they want to talk about it, like, I'm there to listen, but even then, maybe sometimes people wouldn't want to as much, but it's so helpful. And it's crazy. We're going to have somebody else that's going to be on, Brooke Moreland. I don't know if you know her and Josh are going to be on, and she dealt with that as well. And then, there's some other people who have shared like the struggle with anxiety and depression. So I feel like, maybe there's somebody listening who is affected by that and needs to hear other people's perspective and know that they're not alone. And, and
I think it's hard too, being in the church, like, the church doesn't talk too much about anxiety or depression.
I know,
what it is to be in it and what it is to get out of it. And of course, going through that so many times, I definitely feel, I don't know if it's a calling, but I definitely feel more
100%,
to help people through that, especially moms, because I've dealt with depression, and then I've dealt with postpartum depression, and completely different.
Absolutely.
It's a whole nother beast to go through. And I remember distinctly one of my friends who had just had a baby. I went over to take her a meal for her, and I just felt like, you know what, I need to sit down and talk to her for a little bit. And I did, and she's, toting the line that we all do, not getting much sleep, but I'm doing all right, And then I just kind of sat there and just let the silence go. And I just looked at her, and then she broke down, and she's like, I'm not doing good. And
Yeah.
I said, honey, there is not a thing that you're going to tell me that's going to scare me away or make me think less of you.
No, and there's no shame in that.
Yeah. I said, because I've been there. I've been through it. I know that it's scary. I know that you feel ashamed of what you feel right now.
Right.
But just know that God is here with you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here with you, but even more so, God is here with you, and he's going to seek you through this.
Yeah.
After my first, so we were living, we had to move in with my grandparents towards the end of my pregnancy. I wasn't allowed to be too far from a hospital.
Right.
And
because you were like dilated at 23 weeks?
Yeah. Well, it was, I think, 35 weeks. I went in for my 35-week appointment, and they said, you're 5 centimeters dilated, and you're having contractions on and off. But then I went to 41 weeks. So
That's crazy.
But while we were living with them, my grandparents, it was spring of 2021. So it was right in the heat of COVID. Mm-hmm. My grandparents contracted COVID from going to memorial service. Mm-hmm. And I guess they had been smokers for a very long time.
Yeah.
So COVID affected them a lot more than it did.
Yeah.
And we had gotten it too, but we were able to get through it. And she unfortunately ended up being hospitalized and was put on a ventilator. Okay. And she never came off that ventilator.
Wow.
So she passed away a couple days after our oldest daughter was born in the same hospital that she passed away in. I was very close with my grandmother, and going through that grief, that was the first time I'd experienced that kind of grief in my life.
Yeah.
And so the grief compounded with being a new mom, compounded with no sleep. And then also postpartum anxiety. I was, not to get too into the nitty gritty of it, but one of the examples was, even though she was sleeping for 2-hour stints, I was waking up every 15 minutes to check to make sure she was still breathing.
I was the same way. I didn't know that it was postpartum anxiety until, like, again, the blessing of talking with other people. But that's like any noise that Madeline would make. And she was like a congested baby.
Yeah.
So any noise that she would make, I would literally get her up and like feed her and make sure that she was okay. So I was not sleeping hardly at all. And then I got a breathing monitor, and that thing was like the best thing ever, because I was like, okay, this is tracking her sleep. And I kept that, I just got the one that like just goes on the diaper.
Oh, okay.
And so I kept that thing on for so long. Dakota was like, do you think it's time to take it off? When she was like much, much older. And I was like, no, it's not time. But then she got to the point where she was like flipping around a lot in her sleep, and the alarms would go off on it like almost every night and like wake me up in a panic. So I was like, okay, it's time. But it's hard. So I didn't realize at the time, and like I did not want to leave her at all. Like she was over 9 months before Dakota and I left for an hour to go hunting like a mile away. And then we came back, and so like things like that, which caused her to be like way more clingy to me and not want to leave me, for us to go do things. So and thankfully I didn't have that as much with Aiden, which was good. And then like, so I learned, and thankfully I'm home with them, but still that leaving them like made me so anxious. And I've never struggled with anxiety in my life. So I didn't know that's what it was.
Me either.
Unless I talked to somebody and I was like, you mean every mom doesn't get up with every single noise and like get their baby up? And Madeline was a terrible sleeper because I got her on that routine of like getting up all the time.
Yeah, because you're waking them up to check on them, and you're like, did they breathe? So you're touching them, and then it wakes them up more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I can relate on that part for sure.
So I was waking up every 15 minutes with her. I didn't want to shower. People would offer to hold her while I was in the shower. I thought, oh my gosh, I need to know, because I wasn't sure if she was going to start crying and then not come get me.
Oh, I had Madeline like sitting which I had to do this with both of my kids. The door was just open and I just had them sitting there, partly because I didn't have the help and I was nervous, like if they would start crying while I was in the shower, which they always did. I never got like a quiet shower, but Dakota would work late and I wouldn't want to wait that long, because like right before bed, all they want to do is nurse the whole entire time and cry if anybody else is holding them. So it was
Yeah.
It's hard
Yeah.
for sure.
I had this rocker and I just put her in it so I could see her while I was showering.
Yeah, same.
And also, I did not want to drive anywhere by myself because I
Okay.
thought for sure she's going to suffocate in the back seat when I'm driving.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't leave the house to go anywhere, which of course just aided in the depression.
Yeah.
And one night I was hallucinating, and thank God I had a moment of clarity where I was like, this is not real.
Yeah.
And so I woke my husband up. I said, you're going to have to take the baby and you're going to have to take her where I can't hear her for at least 3 hours, because if I don't get some sleep, things are going to get worse.
Yeah.
But so I mean,
It's hard. And it's a lot of stuff people don't talk about too.
no, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't talk about, or like the feelings and emotions that come along with postpartum depression are scary. You know, a lot of people, they don't feel like they're connecting with their child.
Yeah.
And when you don't feel like you're connecting with something that needs you 24/7 and is in constant demand of you and your attention,
Yeah.
emotions arise that just aren't what you are, what you feel ashamed of.
Yeah.
And just understanding that, being able to sit with women and say, I understand that you're feeling this way now, but just know that this is not what's going to be. This is not your motherhood story. This does not reflect on you as a mom.
Yeah.
Becoming a new mom is hard on anyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's one of the biggest transitions that you make. And to go through that with the hormones and the chemicals and all of the reactions that you have,
Yeah.
it's just trying to seek God in that time can be difficult.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I remember being, and part of it too, the grief of losing my grandmother. Like, I remember the first time leaving the house, I had postpartum anxiety, so I was not going to leave Drew by herself. And my husband was driving me to my grandmother's funeral. And I asked my mother-in-law to ride with us because I wanted her to hold my daughter in the car. I didn't want to take her out because I didn't want this to be my daughter's first meeting of my family.
Right.
And even just moments like that made things hard. And so I actually, Miss Elsie, that you guys heard of a couple podcasts ago, yes, I ended up reaching out to her because I knew that she understood grief even more so than what I was going through, and that she could help me through.
Yeah.
And that happened after I remember going to one of my postpartum checkups. And of course, they give you this list. Like, they give it to you when you're in the hospital. They give it to you before, like when you first show up for your first pregnancy, when you're in the hospital, and then after. And it's all of the questions like, are you as happy as you were before? Are you so easy to find the correct answer for it?
Yeah, when are you going to open up to them?
Exactly.
In the 20
so
minutes you're there.
Easy to find the correct answer. So I filled it out perfectly, like I should. And she shows up. She goes, well, it seems like you're doing well. I don't know what came over me, but when she said, it seems like you're doing well, I burst out in tears. And I broke down crying, and not just like the, one tear. I was ugly sobbing. And she said, or not, how about we go over this again together? And then I was on antidepressants after that, which I'm not somebody who wants to be on medications or tied to medications.
Yeah.
And that's,
There's no shame in that
there's some
whatsoever.
people that like, there's no getting around it. Like my daughter has to take medication every day just to keep her healthy. And that's something that has to happen. But if it's something that I can avoid, I definitely want to.
Yeah, there's no shame in it, but I'm the same way about medicine.
And I remember taking these antidepressants, and I remember thinking, it's not that I'm still depressed. I just can't feel it anymore. But I also couldn't feel much else either.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel happy. I just didn't feel it really. It just kind of numbed me.
Yeah.
And so I knew if I'm going, this medication's not going to make me not depressed. And if I'm going to be not depressed, something's going to have to change.
Yeah.
And that was the switch that flipped.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the things that I did, because you don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
I was totally willing to just lay in bed. I felt like my life was a 3-hour cycle of feeding a child. And that is what my life had become. Day and night just strung together. And I was not eating. I was not showering. I wasn't taking care of myself at all.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want to live like this forever. And I was not at that time able to see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And so I remember coming home from that and telling my husband, this is what happened at my doctor's appointment. I need help. And he, of course, was already supporting me, but he also, to just communicating with your partner how you need help.
Yeah.
My husband is an amazing man, and he loves me so well. At that time, he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so me saying, this is what I need you to do. And he took that. And
That's helpful, yeah.
I remember he went to the store and he got me the like Ensure protein shakes.
Yeah.
And he would just come to me and he'd say, I want you to drink this whole thing. And I'm not leaving until it's finished.
Yeah.
And so then I was actually eating and getting some calories into me. I remember him saying, like, you need to go get a shower. And him actually standing at the shower with me, like helping me and just holding the baby right there.
Yeah.
And then he also was the one that pushed me to reach out to other people. I realized at that time that my grandmother was the only person that I was really vulnerable with that really knew me. And I needed to find more people that I could open up and actually be vulnerable with.
Yeah.
So
that's good
I
advice.
reached out to some friends who were kind of acquaintances. And I remember even reaching out to you.
Yeah, we got together and we'd go on walks with the baby.
I was like, well, she just had a baby. Maybe she's in the same position. And I remember just hitting you up. We hadn't spoken in a while.
Yeah.
It had been a long time. But I remember you had just had your first.
Yeah.
They're just a couple weeks apart.
Yeah, Madeline was born in February, at the end of February.
Yeah. They're like a month apart. And I remember reaching out to you and saying, hey, do you just want to go walk circles at the Hampshire Park?
Yeah.
And we would get together and do that. I reached out to some other friends that I had, just asking them to pray for me. And another thing is, like, they, even more so than praying for me, they also stepped out and asked if they could do a Bible study with me. So not only were they bringing my troubles to the Lord, but they were also bringing, me to the Lord in that.
Yeah. And having that solid community is so helpful, for sure.
And so they are friends from Ohio, so we would just Skype. And we had a whole...
Cool.
We were kind of all spread out at that point, but we just would FaceTime and all do a Bible study together.
That's cool.
And even on the days where I didn't feel like showing up to that Bible study and I didn't want to answer that, my husband, he would just turn my phone on and he's like, you know what? You don't have to change. They've seen,
Yeah, exactly.
They've seen it. He's like, you don't have to do your hair or put cute clothes on. Just take the phone and look at your friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's what our Bible studies are. Like, everybody just comes and their t-shirt, like, is not dressing up whatsoever.
Yes.
It's a very comfortable thing.
Yeah.
We literally meet right here.
Yeah.
And it's very laid back.
Those are the best types to have.
Yeah, for sure.
You just don't feel like, you just have your hair in a messy bun, wear your pajamas,
Yeah.
Or he would take the baby and he would say, I want you to go for a walk. You need to go walk outside.
Yeah.
And
Getting that fresh air is so
sometimes
helpful.
my walks was me just like blank staring in the front yard. I probably looked insane. I was in a button down that just wasn't even buttoned. Had pajama pants on and my hair in a bun. I'm just standing in the front yard just staring out to space for like 15 minutes. But those slowly, you're not going to feel like doing it. But you just have to do it until you feel something.
Yeah,
And
getting fresh air, getting a healthy meal, like having community, getting a shower, things like that. Like it is so helpful because it can be easy to lose yourself in motherhood. So to do that is so impactful.
Yes. And